Connell and Marianne are two intimate characters who lie on the opposite side of almost every conceivable spectrum. Connell Waldron is the typical high school football celebrity, and starting from a very young age, he has felt the pressures of his family's financial troubles. This contrasts with his girlfriend Marianne, who is entirely unburdened by money but struggles as the school's social outcast. With the main cast being so entirely different and the book supposedly being centered around class differences, it feels almost counterintuitive for Sally Rooney to drive miscommunication into the spotlight by barraging Connell and Marianne with flaws that lead to miscommunication happening. But as we'll see, the novel actually uses miscommunication in a thoughtful and intriguing way, helping dispel the myth surrounding communication between lovers, as well as using it as a mask to disguise the true hidden conflict between the two characters. From the start, there's a clear indication of romance within silence. For instance, in their first act of intimacy, Marianne and Connell kiss. Although Marianne does not understand what the kiss means, she chooses not to bring it up with Connell, thinking that Connell had been visiting her house only to test her, and she had passed the test, and the kiss was a communication that said, "You passed." There's a lot to unpack here. First off, her internal monologue presents Connell as the tester and herself as the testee. This immediately shows the power dynamic between the two, where Connell is effectively the person steering the relationship, while Marianne acts just as a passenger. Secondly, her inference for Connell's meaning of the kiss is quite elaborate and complicated. As normal people, we assume that this level of knowledge is only obtainable by directly communicating with the other person. However, this is an action Marianne did not take, which shows her subduing and sacrificing a very human reaction to confusion. Her reward for doing so is a fake sense of intimacy, where it appears Marianne and Connell can communicate in an almost telepathic and supernatural fashion, alluding to the idea that they are a natural pair made for each other. This scene is the first time silence and non-communication is linked with romantic connotations. It aligns with a common belief many cultures and stories share, where the expectation is that lovers should be able to know the thoughts of others instinctively, and only then are they considered to be perfect for each other. However, the book immediately begins to disprove the belief through the interactions between Connell and Marianne. For instance, after the kiss, Marianne and Connell lost contact for 2 days, and when they talked again, Connell's first reaction was, "Are you pissed off with me?" Marianne firmly denies it, saying, "No, why would I be?" Connell's reaction comes off as confused and dejected, while Marianne also appears confused. The interaction shows a case where they thought they understood each other but didn't, interpreting each other's actions in a different way. The lack of communication then leads to the suppression of false emotions until a breaking point, where it gets released in a negative manner. Later in the novel, in a more serious case of miscommunication, it is not just emotions that are harmed but also the future path of Connell. During the period when Connell was struggling to pay rent, he wanted to stay at Marianne's house. He mentions his request to Marianne by saying, "By the way, it looks like I won't be able to pay rent up here this summer." However, because Marianne only asks about his situation and does not offer to accommodate him, he never voices the request, reasoning that Marianne's cold attitude was because she was seeing somebody else. It is later revealed that this is false when Marianne says, "I had no idea you wanted to stay here. I thought you were breaking up with me." The miscommunication creates a deeply ironic and gut-wrenching effect. For one, it could have been easily avoided if both voiced their thoughts instead of guessing at each other's mind. For another, it led to deep consequences, with Connell losing his home and foothold in Dublin and fueling his depression and anxiety. Of course, it also led to their relationship falling apart. This shows that instead of silence and miscommunication being a sign of romance, it limits the level of intimacy which Connell and Marianne vow for, instead forcing the two to hover around the limits that their visual communication, body language, and inferencing allows for. This is one major reason the two never end up together. However, miscommunication is not the only reason the two never end up together, although it is the most obvious. The book as a whole reveals a power struggle between Marianne and Connell and points to that as the root cause of their eventual outcome. The imbalance in power is revealed very early on. If we examine Connell and Marianne's first kiss again, the metaphor comparing a kiss to a test shows that Marianne is using Connell's reactions as a measure of success or failure. This shows her deep desire to please Connell and make him love her. showing a willingness to hand over emotional control. Her suppression of thoughts and questions here also hints at her tendency towards delusion as a replacement for concrete words, which shows complete trust and infatuation in Connell. This vividly illustrates that Marianne is the submissive one in the relationship, while Connell holds the power. However, it is the way their power dynamic shifts in relation to their emotional proximity that reveals something interesting. As I mentioned at the start, Connell is the one in power, presumably because he is athletic and popular, while Marianne is socially unaccepted and lonely. During this period, Connell managed to keep their relationship a secret, saying that he could do or say anything he wanted with her and no one would ever find out, showing that Marianne was the submissive one. Consequently, this is also the period where Marianne was emotionally the closest to Connell, judging by the frequency of their interactions, general proximity, and romantic diction used by the author. When the two moved to college, Connell initially had a lower social status than Marianne because he struggled to fit into college life. As a result, he had lower self-esteem. Coincidentally, it is also during this period that the two were the most emotionally distant, with Marianne drifting away from Connell to Jamie. In her relationship with Jamie, she reveals that she likes to be dominated during sex, which can be connected with Connell's domination in her previous relationship. This shows that she generally craves for domination within a relationship. Although mental issues, miscommunication, and class conflict are all cited as causes for this stagnant period between Connell and Marianne, Connell's poor mental state probably meant he lacked the self-esteem and capacity to provide the domination that Marianne craved, therefore causing Marianne to seek Jamie. After Connell had received his scholarship, the two once again sparked a relationship. During this period, Marianne dated a Swedish man who was also very dominating. After finding her source of domination, she even allowed herself to stay in the relationship after it turned abusive, emphasizing her need to give total control of herself to another human being. On Connell's side, as he was becoming more financially stable, his mental state was also strong enough to tend to Marianne's needs. Consequently, the two start their relationship again, although it is revealed that at the end, Connell does not want the control Marianne is willing to give him when she asked him, "Will you beat me?" and he says no. Marianne reacted to his response by turning away. At first, I found it difficult to understand this rejection because it seemed reasonable that a woman wouldn't want her man to beat her. However, it is only when we consider Marianne's unique needs that we can begin to understand her. Marianne's constant need to give another person full control over her may be caused by her family's many issues, the lack of social acceptance, or possibly other social experiences the book doesn't cover. But that's besides the point, because it reveals a fundamental incompatibility between Connell and Marianne, where Connell is not prepared to accept this power that Marianne wants to give. Therefore, their fundamental incompatibility is the hidden reason the two never end up together. In regards to the book as a whole, I personally have mixed feelings. It started off as a great read, but it soon turned so depressing that it was hard to flip the pages. What I hate most is the ending. After learning so much about Connell and Marianne, their intricate and complicated social lives, their unique way of expressing love, their good side and their dark side, after investing so much as a reader, and after all 500 pages, the book ends on a bittersweet cliffhanger. And what's worse, from what I can see, I don't think a happy ending awaits after Marianne's last sentence.